welcome. Thank you all again for joining us today. We have one of the more miraculous stories of senior living sales, at least that I've seen, to share with you today, and I hope it'll be a good experience for all of you. All right, well, we'd like to start by welcoming our panelists today. Erica, thank you so much for everything you've been doing here to help us prepare and share your story. Could you take just a moment and introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Erica Thrashol, and I'm the CEO of Horizon House.
Hey, Amy, you're a regular, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Hey, everyone. I am Amy Brody, and I am the Senior Vice President of Client Experience. I work with all of our clients throughout the country on planning and strategy.
Great, thank you. And I, of course, I'm Rob Love. I'm the president and owner of Love & Company, and I will kind of be the moderator facilitator today with Erica and Amy sharing most of the content we have here today, but I'll chip in a few times. As I noted, what we have, I've been in the field for about 35 years, and we've seen lots of pretty impressive sales turnarounds just at communities where census had dropped down. But in terms of an expansion or startup community, I've never seen a project turn around this much, this fast, as Horizon House did. Now we'll get into the details of that. We'll start off with just giving you a little bit of information about Horizon House, and then we'll share a little bit about the expansion. Then we'll start to delve more into what happened to slow things down and what was changed to reinvigorate things. So that's our game plan for today. Erica, over to you. If you could introduce everyone a bit to Horizon House.
Thank you, Rob. So Horizon House, it's a 65-year-old organization, and we're located downtown Seattle. As you can see from the photos, we're a tower-based integrated life plan community. When the project began that we're going to talk about today, we had 371 independent living residences and 91 assisted living and memory care residents. Although we're a life plan community, we do not have a skilled nursing, and we've not had one in almost 20 years. Our campus, we've developed over the past 40 plus years, and it's created this really unique and highly integrated community environment. And although you could see from the original photo, we have separate towers, when you're inside the campus, you feel like you're living under one roof. And the other really neat thing, although we're downtown Seattle, our community backs up to a beautiful park, historic park called Freeway Park.
So I just want to point out one of the things that jumped out to me when we first visited. Please notice that all the books that you see here, this is a whole, not just a shelf, but a bunch of shelves full of books by and about Horizon House residents. And I just think that really tells you a lot about the unique nature and culture of the people that choose to live there. How about the expansion?
Well, the expansion, I mean, it is a wonderful expansion. I will tell you, it really emerged from a strategic planning process that focused on the long-term growth and sustainability of our organization. The West Tower, it's going to be 202 brand new apartment homes. It's 33 stories, 15 unique floor plans, and entrance fees from $550,000 to $3.1 million. So, huge kind of spread in terms of cost. But really what was behind this expansion, our board, through that strategic planning process, they explored several options. They did what every other good organization does. They thought about, is it time? Should we think about affiliating with a larger organization? They also thought, should we acquire another community? And each one of these types of options was measured against the same anchor, our resident engaged culture. And each one came up short. Those paths would have really cost us what makes us unique, and that's that resident culture that I keep talking about. And that's because we've got this critical mass of just highly engaged residents who actively shape our community each and every day. And the board really decided that the best path for us was the organic growth on our existing campus, But to make that possible, that meant we had to demolish an existing building of 51 apartment homes. The board also made a pretty bold decision as well. They decided, we're going to have to tear this building down, but we don't want to displace the residents who live here. We're going to relocate them all within our existing campus. So that was a huge organizational commitment. That meant that, not only were we taking those 51 units offline, but we were also foregoing the entrance fees within our remaining footprint to make sure those residents could remain at home in their community and with friends. Also, it's important to note that this expansion, it wasn't driven by a wait list like many are. It was just really driven by mission. We wanted to extend our mission to more people and to ensure our organization's long-term viability. And one of those pieces of our mission is serving the middle market. Horizon House is extremely proud that we're able to serve the middle market. And that's no easy feat in Seattle, which is ranked fourth in the most expensive metro housing market in the US. Our median home values are around $870,000. And we knew that in order to continue to serve the middle market, we needed additional residences to spread those operating costs and maintain that affordability while preserving that resident culture. And so that's really the reason, the why behind the West Tower.
Great, thank you. And so tell us a little bit about when you did begin pre-sales, how did that initial launch go? And then when did you realize things were getting a little bit off track?
Well, I will tell you, when I got to Horizon House in 2023, I noticed really quickly that we didn't have a sales culture. Historically, people joined the future resident list, they kind of waited their turn and eventually moved in. The organization never had to really invest heavily in marketing. Our reputation, our culture generated enough demand. As a result, we didn't have the knowledge of our market or really the infrastructure needed to support a major pre-sales. So, we got started, we built a priority list of about 120 people. And pretty quickly, after about 60 of those priority depositors converted, our activity just, really almost went to a halt. And so at that point, I knew we didn't have the foundation necessary to really achieve our financing timeline.
So within that, Amy, I know this is something that you've brought up a number of times, but that number of priority depositors, Erica said they had about 120. Compare what you do with clients to that, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So when we start with something like this, we're typically setting a priority deposit goal of 2.5 to 3 times the number of 10% depositors that we're going to need to achieve the financing. So that's kind of our standard of how many of those we'll need. So for a project with about 200 residents, you would need 140 10% deposits to achieve that financing, which would mean generating roughly 350 to 420 priority deposits before moving into 10% reservations. We generally tend to set this because this target, most projects on average will convert about 1/3 of their priority depositors into 10% depositors. So in doing the math, that target gives us enough priority depositors to accelerate the 10% deposit conversion process. And in this situation, since Horizon House started with only 120 priority depositors, it meant the project was really already at a disadvantage. We knew there weren't nearly enough deposits to drive a strong sales pace.
Right. Erica, I think you had some thoughts too to share along these lines.
Yeah, and I'll also say, we really overestimated our wait list. Our future resident list, we had about 400 people. We had this great reputation and strong occupancy. And so we assumed those strengths would naturally translate into expansion sales. But we learned that they don't necessarily. One of the things that's unique about Horizon House is that we have a wide variety of resident types and price points. And so people on our future resident list, they often have very specific preferences that just didn't align with the new tower. You know, the expansion is also more expensive than many of our existing residents. And so that meant we needed to introduce the project to an entirely new audience.
Yeah, and you know, Erica, I would just add that yeah, that's such an important thing for our audience today. A big, big takeaway is that wait list. Just because you have a large wait list does not mean those people are automatically going to buy that new, more expensive residence. In fact, we have a couple communities that we're working with that we're doing a survey of their wait list to find out really, truly how ready they are and who might convert before we even go into the next step of the project. So it's very important to look at that.
So at this point, to come back here, we're now in this October, November, December timeframe. The deposits have fallen off dramatically, the reservations. And Erica, you decided you needed to bring in some help for this, which we are continue to be grateful that you turned to us, and we've loved working with you. It's been a great partnership. But there was a significant sense of urgency around turning this around. Could you share a little bit about that with our audience?
Absolutely. And Rob, we're so grateful you said yes to this really tall order. So, you know, originally when we started this project, we expected to finance early 2026. However, you know, as we were getting toward, you know, really summer and fall of 24, you know, we had concerns about, you know, federal policy and the future of tax exempt bonds. And so it pushed us to accelerate financing into 2025. That compressed our timeline significantly. And I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't have prior experience developing a life plan community. So I reached out to people in the industry to get perspective, and they confirmed my concerns. And they helped me identify partners who could move quickly and help us address the problem. And I first connected with Love and Company at the Leading Age annual meeting in Nashville. And again, you know, I'm so grateful that they were willing to have the conversation because we were pretty far into the process and, you know, things were looking pretty bleak.
All right. So, Amy, if you could walk us through a little bit about how your team, our team, approached this.
Sure. So we started with an assessment, a really comprehensive assessment of everything that touches marketing and their sales, which is how we usually begin our relationships. We've seen time and again where it's never one thing that's holding things back. So as this slide demonstrates, on top, there's the nice glacier. Below it are all those things that we start to look at and digest and take in to see how do we get this project back on track. There's no silver bullet. By addressing a number of different factors and making adjustments here and there, we were able to get the program turned around. But the three big things that we often find need improvements are the communities. First of all, it's their brand story and lead generation and the sales process. And that turned out to be true for Horizon House as well. So Horizon House had this excellent reputation, as we've talked a little bit today, but the people in the market didn't really know about the expansion. So the awareness level was really low, and they weren't used to that. Horizon House was well-known, good reputation, but nobody knew about the expansion. Second, the storytelling wasn't differentiated. So the marketing was telling a story about new residents, amenities, rather than communicating what truly made Horizon House unique and that we saw when we first walked in that building. So we quickly developed a plan that addressed both immediate sales needs and the longer term branding work. So bottom line, we had to reach more people with a compelling story and make sure the sales process was designed to create a positive experience.
And as you can see on this, the plan is basically to take a stalled program and start with 5 more sales a month 6 more sales a month, 7 more sales, 7 more, 8 more. You're gradually building up that pace throughout the year.
Mm.
So pretty aggressive plan there, given where the starting point was. So let's dive a little deeper into a couple of those things that you're sharing. And let's start with the branding. Talk to us a bit about what you and our team did with the branding.
Sure. As we walked through those doors, as I said, and had that very nice surprise and spent more time at Horizon House, we really quickly said, okay, this culture, this is special. You can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it. We need to tell that story. At that point, we made a deliberate decision to treat Horizon House and the West Tower as one unified experience, not to treat the new West Tower separately. So we were bringing it all together, leverage what we had with Horizon House, and meld in the story of the expansion. We also discovered, and this was kind of cool, the competitors were successfully promoting their locations in downtown Seattle. Now, while Horizon House wasn't fully leveraging what was actually an even better location. So that became another big pillar that we thought we need to address that. And then finally, and I think probably most importantly, we focused on telling the human story, what it's actually like to live there and who the people are. One challenge we faced was that branding doesn't happen overnight. So we get all excited. We see this great culture, these people, and we want to get out there and tell the world about it. But branding takes time. So we had to establish the brand story while also generating a substantial number of new leads. There weren't enough leads existing, and we had to really go out and make a splash in the market. So every lead generation campaign had to also communicate the brand story as we were creating it.
So, Erica, over to you. How did you and your team react to that brand strategy, the findings, and the personality and all those the key brand elements that were brought to the table?
Rob, I have to tell you, it felt so good to be seen. Seattle's a pretty unique place. And so is Horizon House. And so, we always felt like we had something special, but we really couldn't articulate it. We always just talked about the Horizon House feeling and that people could feel it, but you've got to get in the doors to be able to feel it. And so having Love and Company come in and validate, those things that make Horizon House unique was so important. Love and Company also, identified those differentiators, like Amy said, around location that we hadn't recognized ourselves. And they just helped put those things that we always felt about Horizon House into words and added some wonderful imagery with it. And I have to say, words really matter. As you can see from the books that Rob showed, words matter at Horizon House. It's not a place, it's a place where everybody reads. You have more than a few seconds in terms of people's attention span. And even the people who want to come to Horizon House are very cerebral. So getting that story right really mattered. It was powerful for us because we hadn't been able to really clearly communicate those strengths before. The other thing that was really important, again, we had this accelerated timeline. Love and Company was super honest with us. They came in and said, it is doable. And I mean, Rob, that you took your time in terms of doing the analysis. I'm sure nobody from Love and Company had a holiday, that December, because we were so deep into really trying to understand Horizon House. But you said it is doable, but it is going to be a heavy lift. And that really helped, manage our expectations and help us set up, kind of some realistic goals around what we could do. We knew it wasn't magic, and that was going to take a joint effort and a lot of work to get there. But, finally, I think another key thing that Love and Company helped us with is they helped us see the experience of Horizon House from residents' perspective. We, had a little bit of arrogance going on. I mean, Horizon House, again, we hadn't had to market it in the past. We hadn't had to do too much. People would always come to us. And so that was kind of our attitude. We didn't think about the experience. We knew people would love Horizon House when they arrived, but we didn't pay attention to their journey before they even got there. And so having that outside perspective was just really incredibly valuable to us.
So that paying attention to the details of the experience, we're going to come back and revisit that in a little more depth coming up. But one of the things that I know um, it was kind of an issue our teams talked back and forth on at the very beginning was this whole idea of freeway park, which you mentioned before, which it is right there. It starts on the edge of Horizon House. Um, and it's what gives you access, great access into a wealth of cultural and social amenities in Seattle. But yet it had not been really looked at as a strength before. In fact, you kind of shied away from it a little bit. So maybe share a little bit about that.
No, we didn't want to talk about location. I mean, we're in an urban area, and Seattle, like a lot of urban areas, I mean, there are issues with it, and so we didn't want to talk about it. We shied away from it, and we really underestimated residents. People who move to Horizon House, they want to be connected to the city. That's why they move there. They're still very engaged at what's happening, so they're very well aware of what goes on in the city. And so, instead of thinking about all the assets and the beauty, when Rob said we back up, meaning you open the door, and it will be where the West Tower is, and you are in the park. And so, really being able to refresh our lens of what that meant, that's a story of access. It's a story of green space. And so one of the things that the Love and Company team did, they looked at all our competitors and what their branding said. And they brought up, everybody talked about locations. And I have to back up, Seattle's pretty unique in that we have several life plan communities and other senior living type of communities right downtown. And so they were all talking about, being downtown, being in the core of Seattle, and we didn't mention it at all. And we actually have a better location than all of our competitors to downtown. So it was just great for Love and Company to help us, not only see it through, our own eyes, but look and share what our competitors were saying about their location.
Yeah, and just briefly, what I remember is when we would talk with management and staff members of your team, that's where, oh, but we're right by Freeway Park. And, there'd be but when we talked with the residents, they go, oh, I walk down there all the time. Um, it's great to be so close. And so it was that experience again that I know we were looking to bring out. So, Amy, let's come back over to you. And you talked about the branding. Now, let's touch a little bit on lead generation. How did you get that word out?
Sure. And I have to comment on the location. One last thing. It was great. The second day we were there, I believe, Erica had arranged for us to have a tour, a professional tour of Seattle.
Right.
And those hills, they are for real people. So, but that was really eye-opening to us to walk through the neighborhoods and experience that. But anyway, back to our lead generation. First, we did a bunch of frequent direct mailings for events. Some were held at Horizon House, others were held in different parts of the greater Seattle markets. So we went to some pockets that we thought might have people that could be interested but hadn't heard yet. Second, we looked at new and additional media options. So we looked at everything that was happening. And an interesting, I keep saying one, there's so many. A really interesting thing about the media mix was that we don't always allocate budget for print, but the sales team told us that the people in Seattle, they read those papers, that printed paper. And they were pretty sure about that. So we listened to their feedback and we kept that in the mix, and they were right. The biggest change came then with the media strategy approach, from no organized plan to a well thought out, timed, and an intentional plan to reach people at all stages of their journey. We also did some testing. For example, we were testing Bainbridge Island using digital. And the question we had in our mind, well, people come across the Puget Sound to live in Horizon House. So we tested that using digital to see what kind of response we got. We went out there and did an event. And we also tested other untapped areas that we thought had some good potential. Another thing, oh, sorry, Rob, before we go on, another big thing that was pretty important that we noticed early on was that referrals were really low. And we know from doing this for a very long time that if you don't have your referral system in place, you're not going to reach your goals and get there. So there were two obvious places to really beef those up. One was with the residents. So Erica very wisely asked us to come out and do the brand presentation, share it with the residents, got them all in a room and talked about what it was going to look like and what the new Horizon House look and feel would be. And they were enthusiastic. They wanted to be a part of this. They just needed to be asked and helped with how to do that. And then another significant area is with the current depositors. So we worked with the sales team on how to leverage those people who were, they were the early adopters. So they were excited about it. They were bought in. So we made sure the sales team knew to use them to say, hey, bring your friends to an event, have your club meeting here. We'd love to have them. And that was exciting too, because they started to create a little culture of their own to integrate into the current residents. So that was pretty significant in getting some more referrals up there. And then I'll give it back to you. One more great thing we did. We enhanced the digital marketing. And I mentioned that before, but I wanted to call out that more specifically, and I would say more importantly, is that we looked at how the digital messages were reaching people and made sure we were creating a journey from the first touch point to deposit and beyond. Everybody's different. Heads up, one size does not fit all. And we tailored the marketing around that.
All right, before we move forward, there's another kind of background piece to our approach to both the branding and the lead generation facets of things. And that's that we realized when we dug into some of the details that the Seattle market was not as well educated about life plan communities as many other markets. Around Baltimore, you easily have 30% or more market penetration rates, same in Northern Virginia. You go up to Philly, it's usually more than 40%. You go to Lancaster, it's an amazing 50% or more. In Seattle, it was between 15 and 20%. So that meant that life plan communities had not yet become the thing that you do when you reach this age. So there was a lot more than just talking about brand new residences needed to be communicated. We also had to weave into everything that was being told, what is a life plan community all about? And why is that a great decision to make? Because we need to elevate the education of the market as well. All right, Erica, coming back to you. And this is where we said we would come back to the prospect experience again. But one of the big things that you did with your team was really operationalize the marketing strategy, have it flow throughout the organization. Can you share a little more on that, please?
Yes, and I want to take one little step back. When Amy talked about early adopters, it's really important to note this project was launched, that priority deposit phase was launched in 2023. We don't move people in until 2029. So 6 years of keeping people, getting them excited, keeping them engaged. So just, kind of pin that when you're thinking about all of this work. And so around, operationalizing the experience, to the point, Horizon House is just a place it's always been. People are excited to be here, but we just hadn't thought a lot about, marketing. We had not thought about sales, not in this kind of comprehensive way as an organization. So, people did a wonderful job making the residents who live here's experience wonderful. but we hadn't gotten everybody on board. So we really needed to do that. And one of the things that we really had, that really stuck with me when Love and Company first visited, we took them on, our tour. And, when they got done, like I said, Love and Company was very honest with us. And they said, they described the tour we gave them as a back of the house tour. And we took them on the same route we always use for prospective residents. And we had just never really questioned it. And so that just really stood out to me. You can see these photos, somebody comes through, the garage, there where you see that kind of yellow sign that's coming right out of the garage. And then they're looking down a corridor. They've got to go up some steps. This is in a senior living community. Got to go up the steps to get to an elevator to get up to our lobby. So this is what every, prospect experiences coming into Horizon House, back of the house. And someone described it from Love and Company. It's like taking somebody through your kitchen to get to the dining room. And so that just, really stuck out to me. So, as we were really, we got the great data, as Amy talked about, and we were really able to start to see what was going on with Horizon House. We were able to think about, how we could really convert things. We knew, from the data that people now knew about us. We had the marketing out there. We knew people knew. They were coming in for tours. But what wasn't happening is they weren't saying yes to Horizon House. We weren't converting people. And so that made us take a hard look at that experience. We knew it wasn't about people not knowing, it wasn't about getting them here, but it was about, why weren't they saying yes? And so when we realized it was the experience and that whole back of the house comment really stuck out to me, we got all of our team members involved to say, what can we do different? What can we do to really guarantee that once people get here, they'll have a good enough experience that they'll say yes? And so we got every single department from valet to reception on board, and they all came up with these great ideas. It wasn't the leaders, it was the people on the front lines who do the work. And they came up with great ideas like curbside valet service to create a more, welcoming first impression. And that's what we called it. What are the first impressions? It was remarkable how people got engaged. Team members would talk with prospective residents, and then they would want to follow up. They wanted to see how their unique experience actually impacted that person's decision to deposit. So it was a lot of energy that really made a big difference in our experience. But it was kind of from that first conversation around what does it mean for people to come into our campus, and what is the experience like for them?
Well, and I would add to that, Rob, that Erica, like as we said, you were operationalizing this, which was fantastic. That was a buy-in from everyone. One of the major momentum builders came when we started talking about how to get the message into the community a little more organically. We were running marketing campaigns, but we also needed everyone connected to Horizon House to become ambassadors of Horizon House. So they went all in, you guys. Erica participated in one of our social media boot camps. Your online presence changed almost overnight, and it remains very strong today. We also developed an exhaustive outreach strategy. I still remember, Erica, when you said, we want to be everywhere and anywhere we can be. How do we get there? That mindset, it really showed up everywhere. You attended Rotary meetings, staff members were participating in community events, articles were being promoted more aggressively. It was fun because you could see the entire organization really rose to that occasion and said, yeah, this is a place we can help. So it wasn't just a marketing initiative at that point, it was organization wide. And really that only happens, it doesn't always happen, I'll tell you that. But when it does, it's because leadership sets that example. Your commitment doing our boot camp energized everyone around you, and people got excited.
And I would say we knew going in, again, back to the very beginning around just managing expectations, that it was going to be a lot of work. And we had to work on multiple fronts. Because again, back to that aggressive timeline we had, we could have all of the great brand story in the market. We could do a lot of great things, but again, at the end of the day, it was about how people felt when they came on the campus and, the consistency, getting everybody excited, around the work that needed to be done.
All right. I'm going to do a quick aside here because there have been a couple of questions come in related to a logistical thing that I usually say at the beginning, but I realized I forgot today. And yes, this webinar is being recorded. And yes, the recording will be made available to everyone. It'll be emailed to everybody who registered, whether they're in attendance today or not. So yes, you will get that. Okay, back to our regular scheduled programming. So let's look at where we were at this point. Several months in, we definitely have picked up sales, 7 in a month, 5 in a month, 6 in a month, but we were still falling behind where we needed to be to get to what at that point was still thought of as a 70% pre-sales target. And we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. So we were getting close to our target timeline for financing, and we were still running a little bit short. And that led to the 100-day plan, or the 100-day push, as it's sometimes called as well. So Erica, can you talk to us a little bit about that 100-day plan? Because I think you were the driver behind a lot of it.
Yes, absolutely. So, looking at the timeline, we knew we were approaching a point where the math simply wouldn't work out. We needed to go to our board in October of 25 to get approval to go to financing. And so we knew if we didn't start really hitting that seven deposits per month, it just simply wouldn't work out. And so, one of the benefits of having, all of the reporting and data from Love and Company was we had that visibility. We were able to see exactly where we were struggling. Was it productivity? Was it conversion or other metrics? And part of the other challenge was it was just psychological. We were focused on 70%. What does 70% mean? I mean, it can feel very abstract. We were focusing on this, 141 deposits, but that felt so big. And so, and that 6 months felt like a lot of time. So we were at that critical point where we had 6 months and we had not broken that 100 deposits. So that's where the 100-day plan kind of, came out of. But I knew psychologically, if we could break that 100, number one, it would create a pathway, but then people could really latch on to getting 100. And we created a lot of fun and incentives around it. As Amy mentioned, we were struggling with the referrals, and we knew, that was a part of that equation that Love and Company had put together for us. And so what we did, we knew in order to really get the referrals, we were going to have to create, a commission structure that encouraged and prioritized referrals. So we did that. And that focus, it made the difference, and breaking it down and operationalizing things into smaller chunks and smaller kind of milestones really helped the team, wrap their arms around it. And it didn't seem so abstract or insurmountable.
I mentioned something just a moment ago, and it really relates to part of this 100-year plan, because some of your key team members were Sawgrass doing the development management and financial analysis, and of course Ziegler in planning the financing of it. And together we all looked at where we were and felt that, as many of you out there know, it's not necessarily that 70% is a magic number, and once you hit that, everything's fine. Because if you creep in at one sale a month, no sales, one sale, an investor is not really going to be, bought into that this is a successful project. But if you can demonstrate that a project is consistently generating interest and sales at a steady pace. And you saw just a moment ago, we were looking up at 6, 5, 7 a month for a while. That gives the confidence to get to go to financing early. And that's what Sawgrass and Ziegler helped put together for you, was going to market a little risky, but going to market at 60% instead of 70%. Are there things you'd like to share with our audience about that process?
Absolutely. So our CFO put together this risk tolerance statement for the board. I mean, and we worked with Sawgrass and Ziegler to make sure that, we weren't making decisions that were going to tip our financial model. And so in doing that, we understood, if we had accelerated, our timeline, if we went to financing at 60, when would we hit 70? And Love and Company helped us put that together. And we knew, by the end of the year, we could be at the 70%. And that would have been right on target for when we had planned to go to financing originally. And so, getting our board to adopt that also cleared up a path to say, yeah, we can go full speed ahead, because we knew we could get to 60. We knew we could, especially after we hit that, first 100. It was within reach. And just getting everybody on board. That meant, what that meant for our organization. And, to Rob's point, we had to show the velocity that month over month, we were showing up and we didn't have those dips that we had previously had. That meant, foregoing our beautiful Seattle summers and people not taking vacation and really getting on board, as Amy shared. I mean, they listened. We shifted media strategy. We experimented with podcast advertising. Love and Company was there for us. Amy and I we met every single week to readjust strategy. We were meeting with the sales team twice weekly. It was just, we had sales coaching. I mean, we were putting it all kind of on the line with this very short window of time. One of the things that was very clear from the data is that the market was there. So we weren't questioning. We were not at a point where we were questioning if the people wanted the product or if the market in Seattle was there. We had already vetted that through some data through Love and Company. So really at that point, it became about our effort and once, the board could see that we had demonstrated, yes, we can maintain this velocity. Our board was able to, say, yeah, this makes sense for us at 60%.
All right. So as we come to the end, given that we're doing a webinar about this, everybody probably knows that we made it. But there were some interesting things about those last couple months and the kind of performance you experienced there. Amy, could you share a little bit with us about that as we start looking at this end of the curve up here? And suddenly we have 6 sales, 8 sales, 14 sales, 13 sales.
Yeah, that was that momentum that everything was clicking in. We had faith in the plan and what we were doing, and everyone bought in. So initially, like we said, there weren't enough priority deposits. So sales, they peaked and then they dropped off a cliff. So in creating that excitement that we just talked about, that 100-day, in addition to everything prior to that, it really started to pay off. And in October, we had 14 sales in 1 month, as you said, Rob. That was exciting. You don't typically get 14 sales in a month this far into the project. So we were like, "Whoa, this is great." And then we followed it up in November. And I say we, I mean the Horizon House team, with 13 sales. So another 13 in November. So we had 27 sales in 2 months on a project that was already 18 months in. That's not typical.
Right. I just want to show a different graphic here because it just sort of brings to life how really strong those last couple of months were. And as most people know, not every decision, to move into a community like this is made on the first visit to a community. We did a lot of heavy lead generation in March, April, May, June, July, and it was a lot of conversions of those people. Although I also will say, Erica, during this time period, we did see a lot of people go from initial lead to 10% depositor in just a couple of weeks. It was a very unusual experience that way, but I think it goes to show how all the pieces came together to make this a really exciting project with a strong personality. So, Erica, what's next?
Well, what's next? I mean, today, the fantastic part of the story, we're in the selections process. We're currently at 82%. We have intentionally slowed down, sales so that we could retain all of those wonderful people who said yes to us in the push, as well as get them through all the selections. We're still, getting the West Tower deposits and keeping our current campus occupancy strong.
All right. So as we're wrapping up here, let's start to revisit kind of the key lessons learned from all this. Because we shared a lot of different things with our audience today. What are the key things we want people to remember about this? Erica, could you lead off?
Absolutely. Know your metrics. Using data to understand what's really happening can help you get clear about where to focus your resources.
Yep. Amy.
You need to understand how many sales you can and can't expect from your wait list.
Yeah, and that's critical. We have a couple of projects. I can't remember if you mentioned this, that were just early on, and one community has 400 people on the wait list, another has like literally 2,000 households. But how many are actually interested in the product at the price point that they're being sold at? That's really important information to know. And that sort of ties in with understand what your market research is telling you. Consumer surveys that I know we do and many do is very helpful there. But also, I talked about the market studies. And, a market study is more than just, oh, it's X penetration rate and X project penetration rate and gross market penetration rate and the different things. Those are important numbers, but you also have to look at the bigger picture of what the numbers are telling you. And in this case, it was this is a market that is not as educated as many on the East Coast are. And we were really going to have to weave that into what we did. Erica.
Right. I can't stress enough the importance of finding the right partner that gets what makes you unique so that they can help you articulate what differentiates your organization. The right partner can even help you bring out some gems that maybe you didn't even know you had.
And Amy, you touched on this early, but it's worth bringing back again.
Sure. Yeah. Just back to, sometimes just remember the basics. Ensure you have enough priority deposits before starting those 10% conversion. I said earlier, we like to see 2.5 to 3 times as many PDs as we need 10% deposits to get to financing. So do the math.
Yep. And Erica, you did a great job with this.
Yeah, absolutely. You may understand your targets. Leaders understand that, but it's important to translate those targets for your other stakeholders within your organization. You got to make them tangible. You want to bring people along so they can get excited about supporting sales goals and understand how their unique, space in your organization can actually make that happen.
Yeah.
And I'll close with one that I think is just tremendous kudos to you and your team, because you came to us, you were willing to show vulnerability and say, we don't know what to do to fix this. Can you help us figure it out? It wasn't, oh, these people are not generating enough leads. We want you to come in and generate X leads. It was, you were open to that big picture of, we don't know what's going wrong. Help us look at everything and we'll adapt to make it work. So truly kudos to you and your team for outstanding job on that. Okay, last, before we go to Q&A, would like to give each of you the opportunity to share, out of all these things we've talked about, or maybe something we didn't talk about, If there's one thing you would want the audience to take away from your experience and what we've shared here today, Erica, what would that be for you?
You know, if your gut is telling you something is not right in the process, you know, really talk to people within the industry who might know more than you. Talk to the experts, and do it early. Do it early. Don't wait till you're in a situation where it is absolutely critical. And before you launch a project, any project, you know, really do your due diligence and making sure that you're ready for it.
Right. Amy, what's your key takeaway from all this?
I would say it can be done. So, as we've demonstrated today under some pretty interesting circumstances, don't underestimate the importance of that pre-planning and partner with someone who knows how to do this and will tell you right up front if it's viable. If it is viable, there is a proven, mostly predictable path forward to your a successful expansion.
All right. And with that, we do have a couple of questions here lined up for us. Let me come back over. Here is contact information. If any of you want to reach out directly to any of the three of us with questions about anything here, but let's go ahead and turn to our Q&A dialog box here. Amy, I'll ask you this first one. I keep hearing that print media is obsolete today, but I'm seeing the opposite in many cases. And this seems to be another example of that. Can you talk a little about when print still works and why it can be so effective? What makes certain print campaigns successful while others fall flat? There are
Sure.
probably about three distinct questions woven in there. So
where do you want me to start? Absolutely, yes. We went through a period of, when we're budgeting with communities with limited budgets, we're making sure we're putting and getting the most return on our investment for them and their budget. So print was often like, we don't see a lot of direct correlation between putting an advertisement out and getting people in the door and moving in. So it's easy to kind of push that aside. What we're finding is that in some cases, the audience out there, they're coming back to that newspaper. And that could be because, there's so much technology in our lives. That's my theory. But more people are reading the newspaper. So getting in there and being in front of them is something to reconsider if you have the budget to do that. And then making sure that what you're putting, and this was a big deal for Horizon House, what we were putting in the ads actually were telling the story. So it went along with the brand, told the story of Horizon House, and made people really want to reach out and learn more. And that's all you can ask from a print advertisement.
I would just add a couple more notes to that, Amy. Usually when we do use print, it's not a standalone effort. It's tied in with the rest of a campaign. So it reinforces the branding that you get from print. If they see that, they see something online and and they get a direct mail piece and they're seeing it in all these areas, it's reinforcement to the overall campaign. And that helps support everything from a brand effort. The other thing is just need to do the research with the publications on what their readership looks like. What demographics do they have? How many subscribers are of an age and affluence level, that's in our market. Basic data like that still can help direct where print might work and might not. So the next one, this will be a memory test for Erica and Amy. What specific types of incentives and commission structure did you implement? And I think this may have come up when we were talking about the 100-day plan, if unique things were done there. Can you remember much of what was done there?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things when we knew we were falling behind with referrals, we paid 50% more for referrals on our commission. That was one of the things we did. We said, if you get a commission, we're going to pay percent, on top of the existing commission.
Okay, great. Next question, which is actually may have predated all of us with the start of the project, but did you prioritize the current waitlist members? In other words, when pre-sales or the priority deposit list was launched, did you offer the openings to the waitlist members first for the general public? And
No, yeah, we really didn't, because we opened it to everybody, back to kind of what I talked about, how our campus is really unique, and we serve the middle market. Our entrance fees start, just below 60,000, and now they'll go up to 3 million. So the wait list alone would not, have really been sufficient. So we opened it up to everybody at the same time.
I mean, typically, and again, we weren't there at the time, and I think it may have, did the priorities already start before you got there, Erica?
No,
Okay,
they started
keep short of,
shortly after.
okay. Yep, because most times we do, out of some insistence, reach out to residents first, although we don't expect very many people to move. And then the wait list, and give them their own unique time period to get onto the priority deposit list earlier, and get them a better position. And then we go to the lead base, people who've already acquired, and then the last step is to the market as a whole. That's a typical flow for how we would approach things. And this kind of ties into the next question. Do you have any words of wisdom on how to excite existing waitlist members about depositing on a new offering? I want to go back, and there is some words of wisdom, and we just kind of touched on it. Give them a unique opportunity, a unique time. Make sure they're educated that if they're a priority depositor, they will be at the front of the line and have the first choice of the best residences. But on the other side of that, there is the what we talked about earlier of, if someone is on, I'll just use Horizon House as an example. If someone is on their the wait list, and they're waiting for 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment with a $300,000 price point, there's not going to be a whole lot that we can do to interest them in these residences that are much bigger and way more expensive. So it's that research step of reaching out and educating the wait list on what it is you're going to do, and finding out from them their likelihood to purchase this. That's really important to know up front.
Yeah, and Rob, can I add that I think it, even going back a couple steps, it starts even earlier with that wait list. What are you doing with your wait list today? How are they interacting with your community? Are they becoming a part of the culture? Because if you're working with that wait list like that, and they really feel a part of the community, then it's not, oh, the West Tower or Horizon House. It's Horizon House as a whole, and they want to be a part of that culture. So they'll consider whatever it takes to get in and be a part of that if they're really excited.
All right, we have no more questions right now. We're right about at our 1 o'clock target. I'll wait just a moment or two, because sometimes we'll have a late question pop in. And I'm not seeing anything there. So, okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you again to our audience members for joining us today. We hope you've come away with something that is helpful to you. Thank you immensely to Erica for all the time you've put in helping us to put this story together and share it today. And also for the opportunity to be part of the story itself. We've really appreciated that, and it's been a fun, although occasionally nerve-wracking engagement. It's been fun. And Amy, thank you again for all that you do to help make these things happen. And I guess this is where, like on the Tonight Show, and they also say, and thank you to all the backstage members that you don't see, the people that actually pull it all together that make it happen. Kirsten on our team, Tim on our team. Thank you for everything you've done to bring this all together. So, lastly, just like to say that our mission as a company, Loving Companies, every day we help seniors experience a better life. And the interesting thing about this as a mission is we do it vicariously. We don't do it directly through anything we offer seniors. We do it by helping educate them about your communities and about the benefits of being there. And I really hope some of you have taken away some things here today that will help you. With that, I'd like to thank everybody again and join us in another few months for our next one.